Today I'm going to be practicing with my Maneas. Uh, this is what I would call a rig. The linemen in Mexico, this is what they use for climbing utility poles. And I made me a set of them just because I like climbing, so I made a set of them. And I watched a lot of their videos and actually learned a lot. When I first started climbing, I'd seen it done with a more traditional form of it, and I'd seen a couple different people made videos of climbing with a rig similar to this. And then when I started trying to improve it and make it safer, I ended up coming across the CFE, and they use, like I say, what they call Maneas, which is what I would call a rig. They're a little different than mine, but like I say again, I've learned a lot from them, from their safety, the way they maneuver when it comes to obstacles and things like that. They use the lanyard, the lineman's belt. In place of my lineman's belt, I'm using my saddle. Lineman's belt has two D-rings on it. That's what they hook their lanyard into. I've got a bridge that I'm also going to tie in. In the earlier versions of their Maneas, they didn't use these bridges for a safety tie-in, but today they use a bridge here, and in some cases they'll put several bridges in there and make a longer Manea in order to be able to adjust it for different size poles. But I'm going to go ahead and this is the first time I've ever actually really practiced with this system. I do have a band here to fasten this to my foot. I don't have one on my leg loop. I'm not going to use them today because they don't use any. They got a certain technique that they use. They point their foot down. I'll show you in the video here. But I'm going to go ahead and start climbing. But before I say anything else, before I start climbing, here in the United States we use climbing spikes because we got a lot of wooden poles. Well, in other countries they use concrete, in some places even metal poles. And you can't climb that stuff with spikes. So they use this traditional technique that's been improved from the traditional technique because it is safer. They use double their line. There's a lot of strength there, but when you're climbing with two tether, you don't want the least amount of rope that'll hold your weight, because if you was to get up there and slip, a jerk on the rope lessens the rope strength by 33%. Okay. So if you've done that and put knots in it, then you're looking at close to 80%. You can cut down the strength of the rope. So it's more important than ever, because that rope is not always tight, to make sure that you're at least 33%. You're using sewn eyes and everything. You need to be at least 33% more than what your body weight is. You have to make sure that rope will support 33% more. But I'm going to hook in here. First thing I'm going to do, and that'll be my safety, which I'm not going to get very high off the ground. I'm just practicing with it. Like I say, I'm more comfortable with mine because they're tied into me. My leg loop actually fastens to my leg. My foot loop actually fastens to my foot. But I'm going to try this, and I've watched some videos, like I say, I've watched a lot of videos. And they've got a certain technique they use, and I'm going to try it here. I think they usually step in that rope first, but I done it this way. And like I say, if I was to fall, This would catch me, I might get bruised or something like that. But when you're climbing and your bottom rope tether is the same kind of strength that your upper tether is. If you inspect these things regularly, there's no reason for you to drop ever straight down. There's just no reason for it. There'd be no reason for it to break. Okay? If you was to fall, it's mostly going to be from a slip. And you're either going to fall to one side or fall to the other side. And in that case, you're falling away from the tree, and it would cause that noose to tighten up. Well, even when you loosen your noose, you're not loosening it a lot, and so it stays fairly tight. So the chances of you hitting the ground, I've talked to some of those guys, and there really ain't a lot of, it's a fairly safe system, to my understanding from me talking to them. The guy in Columbia said they don't have any major accidents even on the record. But I'm going to climb and practice on this. Whenever they practice, they do a lot of the similar things that we do here in the United States with spikes. They'll only climb up so high when you first start, and they'll pass something, a water bottle or a basketball, something like that. So they'll just stand up and work around on it, and I'm just going to mimic what some of the stuff they do. But basically, you put your foot in, and it's the same thing as hooking your foot right there. And once you're like that, you don't really slide. All your focus is downward and your legs steady. Slightly open your eye. You don't put your fingers under the rope. And you tighten it up. Tighten it up. And then notice when I do this, instead of lifting my foot straight up, watch how my foot goes. It goes out. And it goes back in. It's tight. So it's actually a really simple routine of getting used to. There's no finger pinch. It works smoothly going up the tree. After they was to get up in place, and by practicing some of the stuff they're doing, it allows me to improve on my own hunting setup. I take my lanyard out. And I'm lanyard in. Okay. Now, they're a lot smoother with theirs. They're used to theirs. Let's see. But actually, they get up there and work around on the lines, pass stuff back and forth, practice, practice everything. I've seen them go around. I've seen them go around stuff. More like that, but I'm not that good at it. Like I say, it's my first time doing this with Maneas, and It's a little bit different than mine, but the climbing's the same. It's the same technique. Any kind of climbing takes time to get used to, and actually practicing at a low level is much safer to get really comfortable and everything with it. But for me, I very seldom use a lanyard. The only time I use a lanyard anymore is if I'm going around limbs, and I find I don't really have to go around very many limbs. And probably the simplest solution for dealing with limbs for me is to use one of these little pocket saws. You just have to cut off a limb, you know, big as around your thumb or something. So that's the easiest way for me to deal with limbs. When it comes to going around trees, I watch them, and they actually go around the way that I'm set up. And I'm not comfortable with it. For me, going around a tree, rather than use a lanyard to go around the tree, I'm more comfortable with just doing something like this. I find it's a lot easier for me. But the way that they're working, you know, they've developed their own techniques for going around stuff like that. But I think I'll set up and play on this thing for a while. Like I say, my saddle keeps me from ever falling. You always want to make sure you're tied in with some kind of saddle system, whether it be a belt, climbing harness, and another thing they do is in some places they use a full body harness and a third tether. But the third tether sits basically on top of your upper tether. So it's the same amount of fall and everything that you're going to get. But I can see where, you know, a full body harness for anybody that was worried about safety, it would be a good idea to use a fall resting harness and tie in, and always inspect your equipment and be safe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.